get some cat talk here. Brought to us by our friends over at Hollywood Kia. At Hollywood Kia, the #1 Kia deal in all of Florida. Get the star treatment. We want to see you in a Hollywood Kia. Visit them online at HollywoodKia.com. You can see this man's work online at FloridaPanthers.com. A reporter and host for the team's website does a fantastic job covering him every single day. We steal a lot of his tweets. He gives us a lot of information. Jameson Olive joining us here on the program. I'm going to talk about that thrilling win last night. A lot happening in the world of your Panthers. Jameson, thanks for the time, man. Really appreciate you.
No problem. Thanks for having me. And you guys can steal my tweets anytime. You really appreciate that.
Always boots on the ground and always giving us the latest, man. Who were you more impressed with yesterday if you had to pick one, Aleksander Barkov or Sergei Bobrovsky?
Ooh, at this point, I think with Sasha, you're not surprised anymore. Yeah, he can do that any day. He's, a top 5 player in the NHL in my book, just for what he does at both ends of the ice. So I think for me, it's Bob, just because of that game-saving stop he had at the end, the shorthanded breakaway. That was massive. The Panthers did a great job in front of him. They didn't allow a lot of pucks to get to him, but when they needed the big save, he was there. So in the big moment with the spotlight shining the brightest, Bob came up with that big save. So I'm going to give the win to Bob there.
Yes, I think so. I agree with that. I made fun of Bob when he first got here because he was giving up a lot of goals. But how important is the defense in front of him? Did it make that much of a difference, or is Bob just more comfortable in what he's doing now? Because they always talk about the defense in front of him. Bob always talks about the defense in front of him, but we all tend to look at Bob.
When you look at that, especially in hockey, you can never have a really great goaltender behind a terrible defense. It typically doesn't happen. It takes both sides. But the fact is, it still does come down to those moments like last night, right, where it's a one-on-one situation. The goaltender's got to be the man. And Bob was the man. And he's been the man the last couple of years here with the Panthers. Early on, the Panthers maybe asked that too often of him. I mean, the amount of odd man rushes the Panthers gave up, 4 or 5 years ago compared to right now, it's night and day. But, in the playoffs in crunch time, I go all the way back to 2 years ago, round 1 against Boston, when he makes that save on Brad Marchand in Boston, which kind of flips that whole series around. He has that power. He has that ability. It's just, you can't ask it too much of him. And that's with any goaltender. And the Panthers now have that perfect balance where they play great defense in front of them. But when, a guy does get past them, when Bob's got to be the man, he's the man right now. And it's been so impressive because, like you said, he's been on a roller coaster here ever since he got here with the Panthers. He came in making a big money contract. Things weren't going great right off the bat. He lost his job for a little bit. Let's not forget. He gets it back. And now here he is, the man again, already punched his ticket to the Hall of Fame.
How rare is 7 power plays and no goals? How rare is that?
Against the Tampa Bay Lightning, I'll say it's very rare because they've had one of the NHL's top power plays for a long time. Even without Steven Stamkos, you still have Victor Hedman, you still have Nikita Kucherov, Jake Gensel, you still have some insane weapons on that top unit. So that's really impressive. And of course, Bob did make some big saves, but when you look at the penalty kill last night, getting those 7 kills, it was a lot of Gustav Forsling. It was a lot of Aaron Ekblad. Not just the blocks, but the sticks in the lanes. Seth Jones also did a great job for just getting thrust into action right away. His stick was great, clogging up the passing lanes, not letting the Lightning get off the one-timers and the shots they want to get off. So it's rare, and especially against Tampa Bay Lightning. So I think, you go back to what Paul Maurice said after the win last night, the penalty kill won them the game. And that is the fact. And that's not just the PK unit, it's Bob plus the killers in front of him.
We were listening to Paul last week a little bit, and he was saying that, they're getting wins, but he wasn't thrilled with the style that they were playing. So were you surprised that Bill comes out? We guess we shouldn't be with Zito because he hits home runs, but were you surprised that a blockbuster came right after comments like that they needed to maybe shake something up or give him a jolt? Because a lot of people were just like, oh man, Spencer Knight's kind of a fan favorite, even for being a backup goalie, because he's raised by the Panthers, and Seth's obviously credentialed, but this kind of had a lot of people shook that it happened this weekend.
Well, first going back to those comments, from Paul after the Oilers win is, he was a lot grumpier than the players were. I think some fans were surprised for him to say, I didn't like much of that game. But I think that's just where the Panthers are at now. They're perfectionists now. They want to be the best of the best every single night. They have a system they want to play. And even if they win, if they're not playing that system, Paul's coming in there, he's cracking the whip, they're watching film, and they're getting back to what they need to do. So I think that was more of a one-off than a criticism of the entire team or a stretch of play. They've been playing so good for the last 6+ weeks here defensively. So when you get to the idea of another blockbuster trade, I don't think you can be surprised. It's what Bill Zito does. He's never afraid to move, pieces of the future, whether it's picks or prospects. I feels like the Panthers are never going to pick in the first round again, and that's just fine. They're getting this elite win now talent. We love that. But it's not surprising. The Panthers know what they're doing, and more than anything, they know who's going to fit here. They get guys that are getting, not a lot of love where they are currently, whether it was Sam Bennett in Calgary, Brandon Montour and Sam Reinhart in Buffalo, Seth Jones in Chicago. These are guys that were taking a beating from the local media and the local fans on bad teams just because they were, top players on bad teams. The Panthers know that's not what they're going to be when they get here. They know what fits here with the Panthers, and you saw it right away with Seth Jones. I know it was only one game, but he fit in right away, and you love to see that. And I don't even think you can call Bill Zito bold. I just think he's exactly what GMs need to be now. You look at recent Stanley Cup champions, whether it's Vegas, whether it's Colorado, whether it's Tampa, all those teams are the teams that have GMs that have at one point or another taken a big swing, and it's paid off. The teams at the bottom of the standings right now are the teams that are hoarding their prospects, that aren't making trades, that aren't really trying to get better in the now. And those are teams like the Sabres that have had great prospects and drafts, but they've been rebuilding on top of the rebuild on top of the rebuild. It's kind of just what they do. So you have to be bold, I think, to be a top team and a top general manager of the NHL these days.
What are the fans, for those who don't watch Seth or haven't watched Seth, what are the Panthers getting with him, Jameson?
They're getting just an elite two-way player. I know things didn't go right in Chicago, but when you're the top defenseman playing 25 minutes a night on one of the worst teams in the NHL, you're going to take a lot of the brunt of that just because you're the guy out there the most, and that's kind of unfair. So now he comes here where he's not playing 25 minutes. He's not the top dog. He's on a D-core now with Gustav Forsling. Aaron Ekblad, Nico Mikkel is a great defensive partner for him. He's going to be asked to do a lot less, and for that reason, he's going to flourish, I think. I think, the points are going to tick back up. He's going to be great on the second power play unit. We saw last night he was great on the penalty kill right away, but he's a big man. He's a big goaltender out there with a long stick. He's so good, I think, more than anything, at that first outlet pass, which the Panthers love. They love to get the puck out of their zone right away, send the action, go the other way, attack in transition. He's great for that. So he's going to be great defensively. He's going to be great offensively. And the best part is he feels a need not just now this season, but for the next 5 years after this. It is so hard to get top four right shot defensemen in the NHL, especially at a decent price. With Chicago retaining part of his salary, they're only paying him $7 million a year. That's the going rate these days, right now, and it's only going to become a better contract down the road if he keeps up this level of play. So it fit just such a need for the Panthers that would have been so hard to fill otherwise. This isn't a guy that could have found in free agency this upcoming season. They had to get it through a trade. They identified him. They got him. It's a great move.
So Leroy and I got into a heated debate yesterday about the Matthew Tkachuk injury, because obviously I'm very concerned that Matthew Tkachuk.
No, he's not. No,
I'm very concerned that he's. Don't let me just set it up, okay? But obviously, the team they played last night, famous for cap chicanery when it comes to long-term IR. So how should I feel about this Tkachuk injury? I feel like this is a Panthers team that's going to get to the playoffs just fine, and then boom, there's Matthew Tkachuk. And Bill Zito mentions the cap space, so I feel like he looks at it as an opportunity where he can. Maybe Matthew could have come back, but why don't we just put him on ice for a little bit and maybe we can make him another move? How should I feel right now with this whole Matthew? Should I be terrified that he's injured, or is this an opportunity for the Cats to still beef up? Because this is not something NHL teams have never done before, where they've tried to get their team improved and then get to the playoffs where there's no cap.
It's definitely an opportunity, I think, more than anything. I don't think you need to be too worried about Matthew Tkachuk and his injury. The real problem and the real reason this injury is going to take a while is that it's lower body. And that's what hurts you the most because you can't get on the ice. And that's what takes the longest time to rehab and get back into the swing of things. We've seen guys with upper body injuries, get back, have 2 practices, and they're good to go because they've been skating for weeks. It's going to take a little bit for Matthew Tkachuk to get back on the ice with a lower body injury, which is why the diagnosis is what it is, and we talk about back for the playoffs and things like that. So it's tough to lose him, but I think no team in the NHL maybe is better suited to lose a star player than the Panthers, because you lose Tkachuk, but up front you still got Barkov and Verhaeghe and Reinhart and so on and so forth. The list goes on. So it's tough, but I think it might benefit Matthew Tkachuk. He's been banged up over the last couple of years. He's sacrificed his body for these back-to-back trips to the finals. Obviously, he had the broken sternum 2 years ago. Last year, he got banged up in the playoffs as well. Came back into this year. Finally kind of got back to full health, and that's why he was playing so great. But now I think this is one more opportunity for him to rest up here for another, trip back to the final here with the Cats. So not too worried. He's going to tough it out whenever his time does come. We know what he's going to bring back to this team, but I think the Panthers are suited to kind of ride this out without him until he's back. And like you said, if he isn't back until the playoffs, the Panthers do have about $8 million in cap to work with here at the trade deadline. It's going to be fascinating to see what they do with that if they do decide to use it. The fact is, now that they have Seth Jones, they really don't have a lot of needs per se, but now they can get into luxuries. They can get into luxuries if they think they can use that spot. So we'll see what happens.
We've gotten into
I
this
like that,
argument.
Leroy.
I like
luxury trades.
We've gotten into this argument because he's never been hurt. Tobin's never had a real injury.
Had dead foot.
He says he had dead foot, which is he sat on the crapper too long and his foot fell asleep. That's it. But he's never had a real injury. And I was trying to explain to him how serious a groin is because it's connected to everything and you can't do anything. So
especially in hockey when 90% of the work you're doing is below the waist.
Right.
Understood.
No, you don't.
No, I understand.
You don't understand how serious it is.
I'm just sitting here and I'm looking and I'm like, all right, if I'm Bill Zito, we're like, all right, Matthew could be back April 1st. That's like 6 weeks off. Or he could be back April 20th.
He won't start.
And we can go big game hunting at the deadline. We can make a big swing.
Here's the deal. He may not be on a pair of skates until April. And that's the seriousness of it, is that because so many muscles are attached to that groin and are affected by that muscle in his groin, it's going to take forever.
And one thing about the Panthers, especially in the Paul Maurice era, is they're not we'll play this guy when he's 80% or 90%. They're a 100% team because they don't want recurring injuries, especially with how much hockey this team has played and is going to continue to play. So that's another thing. You're not looking at Matthew Tkachuk getting back at 90%. When he's back, he's going to be 100% unless it's Game 7 of the Stanley Cup Final. Then he'll tough it out. But they're waiting for Matthew Tkachuk to be at 100% here.
How I guess on the other end of the trade spectrum of this, Jameson Olive joining us here from FloridaPanthers.com. The Spencer Knight era coming to an end. He has an amazing night last night in Chicago. Bittersweet for you, a guy you covered him for a long time. Like, how do you feel that the Panthers kind of move on from this? It's, Bob doesn't look like he's slowing down at any moment. So is there a level of surprise that this whole era comes to an end with Spencer going to Chicago?
I wouldn't say surprised just because the Panthers don't have a ton of assets to move just because they've traded a lot of firsts in recent years. And, they want to hold on to a couple of their prospects like Mackie Samoskevich, who's been so good in the top 6. So when you look at what they had to move, if you have to make a deal, you have to spend money to make money. And he was one of their bigger assets they could have moved in a deal like this. And a guy that right now is a luxury because Bob is playing so well and Bob is the number one. And, it's always tough. I saw Spencer the first day as a Panther at the draft. I've talked to him for years, from development camps to rookie camps to seasons here with the Cats to, some long in-depth interviews him and I did over the years. He was a great guy, a great pro, and I'm really rooting for him. Everyone is in South Florida. I know the Panthers are as well with the Chicago Blackhawks. This works so well for him. Now he's a young goaltender on a young team that's going to contend a couple years down the road. He's a part of something big now. And, Doug Plagans always likes to say, if you're good in Chicago, you're never paying for a meal again in that city. Like it's a great place to be good. And I think Spencer will be for a long time there. But the Panthers don't need a goaltender right now. They probably don't need one next year in the last year of Bob's contract. And after that, you worry about it then, because I always believe in the NHL if you need a goaltender, you can find a goaltender. There's so few spots. And with the Panthers, they have a goaltending excellence department. Not many teams do. It's led by Roberto Luongo. They've done a great job identifying guys recently, whether it was Alex Lyon, whether it was Anthony Stolarz, who was great last year and is now starting up in Toronto. They know how to find guys. So whenever they do need that guy, I believe they're going to find it. So if you could move Spencer Knight, a luxury for a guy like Seth Jones, who's going to help you in the here and now, chase a cup this year, and of course 5 years after this, I think you had to make that move.
And how, I guess, what's the confidence level in Chris Drieger? Because he's an old friend. Like we've had him give some time for the Cats. He's back. He's back doing his thing. So do you feel like their confidence is still there in that department because of their familiarity with him?
I think 100%. And of course, like we said, if they do think they need to get even another goaltender, whether it's a third stringer or just another proven pro, they have the cap space to do it right now. So we'll see what they do there. But in terms of Chris Drieger, he was great when he was here. I know it was a while ago, but he put up great numbers. He knows the guys. He knows the facilities. He knows Rob Tallis, the goaltending coach. That goes a long way. So I think the Panthers they've seen it firsthand. I know his numbers in the AHL this season aren't what we're used to seeing from him, but you have to believe you bring him up here, you put him behind this team and this defense, he's going to be the Chris Drieger of old. So they have a lot of confidence in him. And, if he does only play the second half of back-to-backs from here on out, or maybe a couple games more than that, he's probably only playing 5 or 6 games here down the stretch. That's all the Panthers need from him, and they believe he's a guy that can definitely do that.
Jameson Olive, FloridaPanthers.com. Thanks for the time, man. Really appreciate it.
Awesome. Thanks for having me on, guys.
There you go. We will take a break here on the show.
Why didn't you wink?
What do you mean?
You know damn well what I mean.
Well, listen, I kind of feel like that was understood, though. Like the Panthers are going to make a move. Wink, wink,
no.
wink.
No.
No, what do you mean,
No,
dude?
No,
see,
you should do
Lee, you
exactly
shoulda
what
did
you
it
do during the show.
exactly like you did it
Why
during
didn't
the
you do
show.
it? Why didn't you guys?
Because I'm not the one that's falling for this nonsense.
I don't understand what you're not falling for. He just said, Marcos, am
Yeah.
I wrong here? Did Jameson say he's worried about Matthew Tkachuk or not worried about Matthew
He's
Tkachuk?
not worried. No, but it's going to take some time.
Which we have. And you want to know what we're going to do with that time?
What's that?
Although I got to be honest with you, I saw a mock trade for Brady Tkachuk. We'd have to give up Bennett and Ekblad, who I know are probably going to be goners, but those are champs. I don't know how I feel about this.
Bennett and Ekblad?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of money, you know?
Come on.
And whatever picks we got left, which are not many.
Yeah, what another Tkachuk,
No.
though?
Another Tkachuk, though.
No, but you're going to only have one Tkachuk because you don't know when the other one's coming back. I'm telling you, it's going to be a while.
Playoffs.
You're making a lot of
when
you're
you're
taking
back
a
to-
lot of liberties.
When you're back to fat shaming, we're back to Tkachuk. I'm giving up Tkachuk for Lent,
Oh.
and then he'll be back. He'll rise up on Easter.
-1.
Why?
Dude, I don't like that.
Maybe a little.
What?
That's too much. Yeah.
-1.
I'm sorry.
Don't be
Too holy
surprised.
for you guys? You want to get filthy with the Panthers?
Oh,
No.
do you?
And this is the right place. Oh my goodness. I still think that's you.
Too filthy.
Some people like to Matthew Tkachuk. I like to Matthew Ka.
Oh, okay. Hey, you know what? Nope. Hey, you know what? You know what, dude? That's it.
WQAM.